my friends. Am I standing in your way?
No.
Let me get out of the way for you. I am excited because I get to have another conversation with our friend and partner, Jan McManus. Jan, you may come forward whenever you're ready. We have a nice cushy chair here for you. Part of the reason I'm excited for this conversation is because we have a history with Jan and with WeShine, and so many of us are newer to the congregation and may not know this story, may not know who you are, may not know much about the village, and I get really pumped about people learning about WeShine. But before we get to that, I always like to start us off by asking a seemingly simple question, and that is, how would you like to introduce yourself to us? Assume that many of us have never met you before. We have no idea who you are. How do you want to introduce yourself?
Okay. Well, I do see both familiar and new faces, and so it's exciting for me to get to know some new people. So I put down several words to describe myself. I am a licensed social worker, and that is a strong part of my identity. I've been a social worker since 1978. So I've done a lot of work over the years. I must say that being part of WeShine has taken every ounce of experience and skill I've ever gained and challenged me to the fullest. So I'm also, besides being a founder and the executive director of WeShine, I am a mother and a grandmother and a member of the 2S LGBTQIA+ community. So those are the primary identifiers I wanted to tell you all about today.
Awesome. Okay, so you used an acronym?
Right.
Is it an acronym still when it has numbers in it too? Yes, okay.
Oh, the 2S? Yeah, so that's two-spirit, lesbian, gay, bi, trans, queer. I is intersection, sorry. A is asexual, and then there's additional identity, so that's the plus plus.
Yes.
Yes.
Thank you.
I'm just an old-fashioned lesbian myself. Sometimes I have trouble.
You know, yeah, I love the attempt, though, to be an umbrella, you know, looking at that whole rainbow of expression, because when you have a conversation with somebody who's part of that community, we come with our own assumptions, and we may not always. It wasn't until 2 years ago I learned that Freddie Mercury was bisexual. I was just told he was gay. Mm-hmm. And some of his music started making more sense to me. Uh-huh. I'm like, oh, okay, all right. It's too easy to invisibilize folks.
And other them, yeah.
And yep, absolutely. Now, WeShine.
That's also an acronym.
Yes, what is that? What is the acronym? And also, what is WeShine? What does it do?
Okay, well, WeShine stands for Welcoming, Empowering, Safe Habitation Initiative with Neighborhood Engagement. Obviously, that's quite a mouthful, so we tend to say just WeShine. We also have a legal second name, which is the WeShine Initiative. So we use the shorter version most of the time. But I think the words are important that make up what WeShine's about, because really those words tell pretty much the whole story of who we are. And we formed in 2021 to provide transitional shelter. Transitional shelter means it's not short-term. It's up to 2 years in length that people can stay in the shelter working on getting housed and stabilizing their lives. And we also provide wraparound services, and we focus on serving the underserved, some of the folks who tend to fall through the cracks and do not feel welcome or safe in other kinds of shelters. So that includes very many groups. Studies have shown that the primary people living in shelters in Portland are cis white males. And so we deliberately chose, because of our small neighborhood-based concentrations of sleeping pods and facilities, to focus on some of the other populations. So we prioritize serving Black, Indigenous, people of color, older adults, the whole 2S LGBTQIA++ population, female identified, those fleeing interpersonal violence, those with disabilities, and those who have been camping or staying in their cars in the nearby area. Because every time we locate a village, we want to also try to help the neighborhood feel safer and give the people who have been living unhoused have a place to shelter within the part of town that they've chosen to locate in.
Mm. So your villages are context specific,
Mm-hmm.
and I'm hoping I can hear a little bit about why that matters. Why does it matter that a village be context specific? And also, what are those? What are the three villages? What are their emphasis?
Yes. Part of the context is around, again, serving those who tend to fall through the cracks or don't feel welcome or safe. And part of feeling safe is feeling like you're with people who understand you. As our villagers talk about, they don't have to explain themselves. They just feel like they fit in, they belong. We've actually done some research with our villagers about that sense of belonging. And it's very, very important to them to have affinity with the people that they're in the shelter with. So this village, which was our first one, we worked with the church, the congregants, to decide which underserved population did we want to serve here. And together, we chose to serve the 2S LGBTQIA++ community with a priority for those who are intersecting as Black, Indigenous, people of color, older adults, or people with disabilities. And our statistics show that that's exactly who we've been serving for our 4 years here now. At our Avalon Village, which is in southeast Portland on 19th and Division, we serve people who identify as female with intersecting identities as Black, Indigenous, people of color, older adults, or people with disabilities. And at our St. Andrews Village, which opened about a year ago in April, which is in North Portland on the grounds of St. Andrews Episcopal Church, we serve people who are age 45 and older or who have physical disabilities with the same intersecting other identities. And the reason we chose, again, we worked with the church to choose to serve that population. That was a church that had been fundraising to put a lift into the church because many of their congregants were aging and the only toilet facilities were in the basement, and people had stopped coming to church because they couldn't get to the bathroom. And they had gotten part of the way there, but it was a $100,000 lift, and they had raised $25,000. So when we came in, we were able to, and they offered to lease us the basement to use for our common spaces, a beautiful kitchen down there, a huge community room, bathrooms. Then by coming in, we said, well, we can use some of our money to help finish getting that lift put in, and it'll serve both the congregants and the people we'd like to serve here. And I don't know if you all know this, but one of the fastest growing groups among unhoused populations throughout the country, but here in Portland too, are older adults. And so we became the first shelter to specifically focus on serving older adults and people with disabilities. And that shelter is 100% ADA accessible. Our other two villages, this one and Avalon, are partially accessible. We did our best with the resources we had, but they don't have a lift and ADA designed bathrooms like we do at St. Andrews. So again, at our Avalon village, we worked with the neighbor. We didn't have a host church there, but we had a host neighborhood, the Hosford Abernathy neighborhood. And together we worked and chose to serve female adults who identify as females there. So it's been a partnership all along.
Mm. Well, speaking of that partnership, I want to talk just for a moment about maybe some of the story of how this partnership began. Mm-hmm. Because that is a story that lives in my heart. It's part of what drew me to this congregation. Mm-hmm. The fact that this congregation had a big piece of their property that they weren't clinging to and instead wanted to use. Mm-hmm. So anyway.
It is, I think, a remarkable story. So back in late 2020 and early 2021, remember what it was like here in Portland. We were on the verge of the COVID pandemic, of course. But we had also had a lot of unrest in Portland after the murder of George Floyd, and there had been, a lot of political action by various groups. There had also been a big surge in the number of tents and car parking folks who were unhoused throughout the city. And Portlanders were very unhappy. And there was a lot of, publicity about this. There was a lot of finger pointing at saying, local government, you're not doing enough. It's your fault. Things are so bad. In my own neighborhood, and I happen to live in inner northeast Portland, there were a lot of campers going into the nearby park, and homeowners had mixed feelings who were living around the park. Some of them were terribly frightened and upset because they were encountering things they worried for their children's safety, things like needles and people with acute mental health issues. And because there were no public bathrooms available, there were also feces and urine and things like that around that people were encountering that they hadn't encountered in the past. I was at the time active in my neighborhood and was talking to other people who were activists in their neighborhood, and we were sort of asking ourselves, what is the role of neighborhoods and congregations and businesses in trying to address this issue? It's not all government, and those of us who were working on this felt like we needed to sort of raise the idea that we're all responsible for this mess of lack of affordable housing and homelessness that has occurred. It's not any one action, or it's a longstanding failure on the part of many parts of our society that we've ended up like this. So we felt, what could neighborhoods do? And the answer that we came up with was the idea of having small, very local shelters embedded in neighborhoods on the more commercial streets, so they have great access to transportation and access to jobs and health care and social services. And all we needed to find was some private landowners who would lease us some land. We could put up some small tiny house type things and start little shelters. So that was the germ of the idea. And so it was 3 neighborhoods working together on this initially: the Kearns neighborhood, Sullivan's Gulch, and Laurelhurst. And we went hunting all around our 3 neighborhoods. We approached at least 50 landowners, asked where we saw an unused parking lot or an underutilized parking lot, and asked them, hey, would you be willing to rent us some land? We've got this great idea. Nobody bid on it. So, but meanwhile, I was visiting my mother-in-law in a foster home 2 blocks away, and driving by this church almost daily, and noticing that you all had campers on your grounds, and you had the Solvanti counseling service, and you had a community garden. And I thought, I've got to stop by this church and see if I can find anybody to talk to. And then I started getting phone calls. Have you talked to the people at Park Rose Community United Church of Christ? You should stop by there. I think they might be interested in talking to you. And it was kind of a soul-searching thing for us, because we had felt like we shouldn't go ask other neighborhoods to house people in a shelter if we didn't even have one of our villages in one of our founding neighborhoods. It didn't feel fair. But we were having no luck in our own neighborhood, so finally I did stop by, and I met with Erica at the time and your interim pastor, Diana Rodriguez, and it turns out you all had been thinking about building or having some sleeping pod type things moved onto the property to house some of the people you'd been sheltering in tents, but you were also struggling with some of the experiences of having sort of an unmanaged encampment on your grounds, and there was neighbors that were upset and congregants that were upset and some struggles with some of the behaviors. And so when I waltzed in and said, hey, I'm a social worker and we want to put up a village and we'll manage it for you, but you can be a partner and help us do this thing, it seemed like a win-win on both sides.
Yeah, Erica still to this day says that's when you came riding in on your white horse.
Well, I may be on the white horse, but you all saved helped birth the idea of WeShine as it's become.
Yeah.
And yeah.
horrible things people would say, and they have been the loveliest neighbors. I live right across the street of this college, and best neighbors ever. The garden is beautiful, the fence is beautiful, the house is beautiful, ground is clean. It's amazing.
Well, thank you.
As a neighbor, but yeah, I no longer advertise my notary business on next door because I'm like, these people are just like influenced, right?
Well, it was rough. It was really rough at first. I mean, obviously the congregation was supportive, but we didn't have much other support. Although it was funny, the supporters were silent, and they'd come by and do things like drop off donuts or, say a nice word. But the ones that were vocal were the ones that were angry and upset. And it was
they got
rough.
the news crews over.
Yeah, and you all will remember, those of you who were around, that Weimar had petitions at every counter for people to sign to try to drive us out of the neighborhood. And one of our volunteers, who you may have worked with on a weekend when you were helping build the village, some of you, wrote an editorial to the Oregonian, which got published. It said, in the Hazelwood neighborhood, there are 38,000 families or something like that, and only 1,000 have signed the petition at Weimar, which I love that story.
Well, we're gonna let's try to save our questions and comments towards the end. But this does bring up something that I think is an obvious difference right now. So we've gone from having neighbors so upset they're lobbying for the expulsion of the village before it was even formed, to some of them very visibly changing position and now sharing the goods that the village is able to do, which wouldn't have happened without numerous attempts to extend the olive branch and be transparent. And now we don't have a village in the corner of our church property. It's empty. We have these new pods there, but it's all torn up. And I have neighbors now emailing or calling saying, what happened? Is everything okay? Which is beautiful.
Yeah.
But could you speak to what's happening now?
Sure. And by the way, we did put flyers up around the neighborhood. So
But you know how that goes. Yes, we put flyers out for things going on over here. We send it in the weekly update. We have a crier that often has stuff, and we miss things.
You can't communicate enough about these things.
Yeah, I would say we should go on next door, but that's a dumpster fire, so we don't do that.
Well, what's happened is that this is our oldest village, and it was a learning curve for us, and it was an all-volunteer build. And we didn't have anybody really on a daily basis who was there who had construction experience. You had a social worker in charge. So some of the windows got put in backwards, and the doors weren't always square, and there were, cracks in the walls and things. And so as a result, although they've been fine, they wore out fast. And over the 4 years, there was a lot of moisture intrusion. And, when people are living in circumstances like a village, they bring in their wet clothes, walking with their wet shoes into a pod, and we didn't have a very good ventilation system in the pods. And anyway, as a result, we developed a mold problem. And we treated for it as soon as we discovered it and spent a lot of time and money treating the mold. But we reached a crisis point this spring where we either had to invest substantial amount of money to sort of put in a ventilation system in each of the pods, or figure we should start all over. And we had actually only planned for those pods to last for 5 years, and we were 4 years into the 5 years. So, and that, again, it was our learning curve. But you know the story about, when you're making pancakes, the first one always gets burned. It was kind of that situation with our pods. We learned a lot. Our second and third villages got better built along the way. So anyway, we had some savings from this year because St. Andrews opened a little later than we expected, so we had budgeted money for that we didn't need, and we had some staff turnover, and that always results in some savings. And so we went to the county and said, we think we can pay for most of this ourselves if you'll just let us use the money that we haven't spent yet for this year? And they said yes. With that, I had done a lot of research and found this nonprofit up in Seattle called Sound Foundations. These are all volunteer-built sleeping pods that we've brought in there too. But there they've created kind of a production line. They use jigs to build. I don't even know what jigs are, but they use jigs to build these pods, and they have a really good quality control system, and they have a really fantastic ventilation system built into the pods. And since it's all volunteer built and they raise money to get the donated materials, these pods were very, very inexpensive. So even with the cost of transporting them to Portland, it was the cheapest alternative around for high quality pods that have been around in the Seattle area for more than 7 years and have a great track record of lasting through the weather. So we bought pods, and we took this opportunity to work with our architect to actually redesign the layout of the village so that we could have more pods and serve, because we had a lot of empty space in the original plan.
And there's a little bit of a space improvement for the individual pods too.
Their pods are substantially bigger. The first ones we thought were too small, so these are 8 by 12. So it was 8 by 8 before. These are 8 by 12.
Yeah, that's a good chunk
substantial
bigger.
Improvement for the villagers.
And there's more privacy.
Yeah, that's part of why we redesigned it. The villagers had been critical over the years. They didn't really like being in a circle. They felt like they had no visual privacy. They felt some people would come in and feel like people were staring at them all the time.
Sure.
So in the redesign, that most of the doorways face in different directions, so people will have more privacy visually.
Yeah.
So anyway, so that's the reason, and so the old pods weren't recyclable. I know I had people were saying, why aren't you recycling those pods? Well, they were really contaminated with mold and could not be reused.
Yeah. Which is also, if you've seen a pod escaping from here, that's not the plan. That was never the plan.
It was a mistake. Yeah, so we had some construction guys who were around and helping us. By the way, they're doing a whole bunch of work, over $200,000 worth pro bono for us.
Wow.
In managing this project.
How is the reconstruction going?
Well, all the pods are in, and with Jesse's help, we'll move the fence after the service. Anybody wants to go up and look at the pods. The only thing I'll ask you is to be really careful on the pathways, because until they're finished, they can't be walked on. There's stone pathways that we put back for easy wheelchair access. And so we'll have to, I think there'll be some boards across them, but you'll have to be careful about not walking on the pathways. But we can open up, the doors are unlocked once you get inside, so you can see inside the pods.
Restorative justice, do you want to do a little field trip? And then we'll come back? Okay, all right.
Great. Well, let's see, so the pods are up, we're rebuilding the pathways. We have to rebuild a catio for one of the pods, and the dog run still needs to be rebuilt. Some of this won't get done before they move back, but the villagers are coming back on the 24th, and they're very excited about it.
Yeah. Where have they been in the meantime?
They've been in this cute little motel on Powell Boulevard, Southeast Powell Boulevard, and it's only an 8-unit motel, and we happen to have 8 residents, and we didn't fill our vacancy because we knew we were going to be trying to redevelop. So it was just the right size, kind of like the Three Bears. It was perfect size for us to take over for a couple of months, and they just gave us the whole motel. I mean, we're paying for it, but we took over the motel for a couple of months.
That's awesome.
So let's see if I've covered all the points on there. I think so. Yeah, so anyway, so it's coming back hopefully better than ever. One of the other improvements besides the new pods is that our staff were using one of the old pods for an office, a little 8x8 office, and at times we have 4 people on duty at the same time. And it just wasn't working, and there was nowhere to have a private meeting with a villager other than the living room, which is really for the villagers to use. So with the redesign, so with the 13 new pods, 2 of them are going to be for staff to use for both, private meetings with villagers and just have their own desks and things up there. And then there'll be 1 extra pod, so we will be able to serve 11 villagers at a time instead of 10. So that'll be an improvement.
Wonderful. Okay, so we're getting a little closer on time.
Yeah.
And I know there's a number of questions and comments in the room, but before we get to that, it's important to me to ask, is there anything else that we as a church or as individuals in this room can do to help support you in this work? You and WeShine as a whole.
Well, let me just call out what you all have already done. So, I mean, you were the first in Portland to host a WeShine Village. You helped with the initial funding. There was a substantial donation given by the congregants at the very beginning. You leased the space in the church that we've used for office and meetings, as well as the land to us for the village. Many of you helped build the village, and it helped with other projects since then. And church members have served on our board and committees. I want Blair, many of you have been a board member, recently retired from the board. Todd Peterson has now joined our Community Engagement and Fund Development Committee. We're really looking forward to working with him. Let's see, we've also partnered on things around the Wellness Wednesday. And one thing we're working with Erica on is that we got a grant from the state to help people get their birth certificates reestablished for ID documentation, and we're going to open that up to the public and start being present on Wednesdays here at Park Rose and Fridays at St. Andrews, where they have a food pantry, and our staff will help anybody that walks up, apply for and pay for a birth certificate. So we're really excited about doing that. In fact, St. Andrews is coming over to visit this church to learn more about your Wellness Wednesday, because they'd like to replicate it on the Fridays when they have their food pantry at St. Andrews. And in terms of other ways you can help, though, we're still looking for some board members. We really could use someone with financial management background, event planning or fundraising, construction, real estate or employment law, or community public relations. So I'll just throw that out. If you know anybody they think might be interested. Also, we had all this pro bono work from the construction company to help us rebuild Park Rose, and we had our savings from this year that we used, but we're about $30,000 short of what we absolutely need to finish furnishing and replacing stolen items. We had a lot of theft from the village when the people left and the people would break in and steal things. So we had lost our security cameras and a bunch of furniture and first aid kits and things like that. So anyway, if you have the means and are interested, we have a GoFundMe campaign running right now. All you have to do is use your browser to go GoFundMe WeShine, and if you can contribute anything to help us reach our $30,000 goal, to help us kind of replenish our reserves for having to replace so many things at Park Rose, that would be really, really helpful. And we look forward to doing more things with you in the future. We've had the Portland Chamber Music Group would like to come to a concert here that I'd love to partner with you all on. We'd like to have a welcome back barbecue later this summer and open up the village to the community and maybe use the church plaza to have a barbecue. So we want to keep partnering together in all kinds of ways. And we can't tell you how much we appreciate all the support and help you all have given us over the years. And we wouldn't be here without this congregation.
I love that so much. And to be honest, I think there are a number of us who wouldn't be here either without WeShine's relationship. We deeply value being a church that not only says it loves its neighbors, but loves the neighborhood. And I believe that. Like, I feel like a guy who's lucky enough to have two different neighborhoods that he cares about. The one that he lives in and the one right here. And I think many of us, what you all have been doing has challenged so many of our imaginations of what's possible. It's so common to hear, well, this is an age-old problem and there's no fixing it. And I think that's the trap for so many of us. Mm-hmm. And here you are doing something about it, doing it.
It's like that parable about the starfish on the beach and throwing one back in the ocean. We may only be throwing one back in the ocean, but hey, that starfish really needed that.
That's right. That's right. And as our quote mentions from Tina Kotek, although this year's been filled with budget challenges, y'all aren't the only ones doing this work. And it is helping promote the other villages and the other shelters and transition systems and all of the other things that we need to help alleviate this issue. Mm-hmm. So good thing there's a lot of us reaching out for those starfish.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah.
All right, church, let's turn it over to your questions and comments. Steve's going to bring the handy-dandy microphone over. And I think, Bruce, I know you had something you wanted to say earlier. Okay. All right, let's go ahead and start with Daniel, and then we'll move backwards. Here comes the mic. You do, because the folks at home need to be able to hear you.
People who have people. All right. Pods. Is there not a better name than pods?
You know,
because I'm just thinking sci-fi. Like, I'm going to live in a pod.
I mean, there's a whole history about how we got to pods, but I know that, you know, we looked at huts, we looked at cottages, we looked at, I mean, there were a lot of words considered, and there were objections to many of the words on all kinds of bases, and I've heard objections to pods too, but the objections to pods didn't seem quite as strong as some of the others. And we don't want to say tiny houses, and I'll tell you why. It's because they're not houses. They're sleeping spaces. There's no kitchen. There's no bathroom. The folks that stay at a shelter are not residents. They're guests or participants. We don't want to act like they're housed. They're not housed. They're in a shelter. So we don't want to say tiny houses. So I would entertain a better word, but I haven't come up with one, and I haven't read or heard one.
Proper word is unit.
Units?
Yeah, or home.
Well, units, again, imply that you have a lease. It's a housing unit, and it's not a housing unit.
Who cares about what it implies?
Well, no, but it's a legal issue.
Yeah.
Yeah, it matters how we label these things legally. Yeah.
Okay,
let's go ahead and pass it to, I think Wendy had her hand up.
Whales and dolphins are traveling pods, so I think it's a good word, but I like whales. My question is about the garden behind. When I first moved here, which was 11 years ago, and I stayed because I love this neighborhood, but I was curious because I had to sign up through the Parks Department to get a space gardening. Is that still true, or do we have?
Yeah, that's a City of Portland community garden.
That's okay.
And there's no room at the end for our villagers. So our villagers garden within the village. We have portable garden beds. You'll see when we go up there. Yeah. There's been great strawberries. I've been eating strawberries almost every day.
Yeah, because in apartments, what I do is I plant everything in 5 gallons, and I've got like a world of tomatoes and peppers coming up right now. So, but they're all in 5-gallon pots because I have to move them around because new tenants, they don't want them. Or
the city also doesn't allow us to put any in-ground gardens inside the village at all. So everything has to be portable and easy to move.
All right. Thank you, Wendy.
You mentioned you might need some help with various things, PR, that kind of stuff. Would you just go to WeShine, the website, to contact you guys about that?
Yeah, you could do that, and I can give you a card, and you can contact me directly, and I'll put you in touch with our board chair. So that'd be great.
I would love to stick around, but I got to get out of here.
No, okay. Well, yeah, just go to our website and send a message, and we'll get back to you.
Thank you. Okay, Rita? Is this a question?
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah, I'm thinking about families that are homeless with children. I haven't heard much about what's going on with the homeless families. I hear there's some homeless families, and it's terrible for children to have to go through this.
Yeah.
Well, you're right about that, and there's some great organizations in town that focus on serving, families. We chose at the beginning to serve adults. That was the largest underserved group with the most underserved people. But families, there's a lot of families in need too. Portland Family Solutions, which now goes by Path Home, is a really great organization to get to know and support.
Thank you. Okay, so Before it goes to Evie, did I see another hand? Oh, all right. Go ahead and Evie, you'll close this out.
So I'm wondering, do you have any like harm reduction for people who have drug addictions?
Mm.
Now, that is our approach. We are a low barrier shelter, so that means that we don't, require people to participate in treatment or any program or to be clean and sober before they enter. We don't police what they do inside their pods as long as they are not breaking fire regulations or health regulations in terms of things like loose needles. And then a lot of people have picked up the use of drugs as a survival technique when they've been on the streets. That's the majority. Very few people enter into homelessness because of their drug addiction. It's more likely that they develop the drug addiction or the alcohol problem from living on the streets. And so getting safe and stable is the first step.
Yeah.
And then we work with people around, how's that use working for you now? Is it preventing you from doing other things you want to do in your life? And if and many of our staff are recovering from mental health or addiction issues themselves, so they've walked that path, and our peers, they're certified peers, so they really walk alongside people as they consider whether they want to change their life or not.
Oh, well, my question is more specifically, like, do you have on-site a harm reduction? You know what harm reduction is, right?
Yeah, well, all our staff are trained in the administration of Narcan, and our policies are to support people in reducing harm as part of what they do when they're working with our staff. So I'm not sure what you're asking about specifically, but our approach is harm reduction.
Okay.
Yeah.
That sort of answers my question.
Thank you. All right, everybody. I'm really grateful that we had this chance to catch up, Jan. I am so looking forward to the villagers and your staff returning. I've personally missed them a great deal.
Yeah.
Some of us do a comic connection group with them, and now it's just the two of us right now. So we're looking forward to them coming back. If you have any more questions or comments for Jan, hold on to them until we're getting coffee and cookies or we're walking into the village. By the way, if you're really curious about the village, this is a great opportunity for that. It's not normally open to the public for the safety of the villagers. All right. Thank you so much.
You're welcome.